Do you think that's been a kind of a recent thing, more collaboration rather than competition, or?
I think it has been a more recent thing.
Okay.
You know, it's a shame Bacher didn't write the dinosaur heresies and also write the archaeology heresies, because all of the same stuff that applies to some of the issues with the old guard in paleontology applies to archaeology, but tenfold.
So you're tenfold.
Much
Is
worse.
that a book? Is that a book you mentioned?
Yeah, so I highly recommend reading The Dinosaur Heresies by Dr. Bob Barker. He's a paleontologist who works at the Morrison Museum of Natural History, as well as, being on the board at the Houston Museum of Natural History. He's one of the most famous paleontologists that's existed, and he's one of the leading experts on Dimetrodon, Morrison Formation, sauropod dinosaurs, any number of those things. And he's just been in a ton of documentaries. If you've seen anything about dinosaurs, Dr. Bob has been in it.
Wow.
So,
wow.
But his book talks about some of the issues that he noticed as a young scientist, trying to research under, for lack of a better term, the old guard of academia. So I'm experiencing some of these similar things. Basically, people have built their legacies and their careers around their understanding of this indigenous event. But the thing about building a legacy in paleontology or archaeology is your legacy is going to be destroyed when you have more data or more avenues of gathering data available. So better methods, better science. Better science means that some ideas that maybe were once considered the primary notion are no longer considered valid. For example, the ideas of how the dinosaurs went extinct. During Bacher's time, this was a very highly contested thing, but now everybody kind of accepts the fact that it was the KT mass extinction. It's the same way with archaeology, although we've undergone these processes pretty much generationally, and each generation they kind of ramp up, more thoroughly. So some of the changes we're seeing, with the current generation of anthropology is we're seeing, undergrads take a little bit more responsibility to do the research themselves. I think I would describe them as an entrepreneurial scientists, people who are willing to go out and go the extra mile to achieve the results that they need to get. And the way that a lot of archaeologists have spent their careers just kind of skirting by, crossing all the T's and dotting all their I's, because there hasn't been too many of these scientists. It's kind of being, really criticized, and new methods are being put into place that kind of make the old way look like digging in the sand. So, yeah, so we're seeing, people adhere to more stringent reviews. We're also seeing, a greater respect for the religious significance of archaeological sites towards indigenous peoples. It's really been my generation who's been at the forefront of NAGPRA, repatriating all the artifacts in the Southwest collected from burial sites, collected from sacred sites, repatriating the skeletons of these indigenous peoples themselves to the respective tribes that they belong to, having respect for indigenous religions when it comes to study of genetics. All of these things are becoming like more of the forefront. And because of that, I think we're really starting to see archaeology and anthropology evolve. We're also seeing greater female participation in anthropology and archaeology than ever before. And I think that's really because of, so many, inspirational female figures in anthropology, like Jane Goodall, or people like Mary Anning, who inspired some, or even, fictional characters like the paleobotanist from Jurassic Park. All of these things kind of inspire young women to get into anthropology and paleontology, and we're really seeing that in archaeology in a very heavy, way. I mean, in my just anecdotal experience, I'd say over 50% of people I work with who are archaeologists now identify as female. So I would call that really great progress when, just 20 years ago, this was a field that was kind of an all boys club.
Yeah. So I mentioned to a couple of friends that you were going to come on the show. So they had a few questions. What You mentioned the increase of female participation in the field and the industry. How how much does Jurassic Park have to do with that?
I think it's had to do a very significant amount. Indiana Jones to some extent, but Jurassic
Okay.
Park was kind of a staple for Gen Zers. I mean, we all grew up loving that film. There's a reason why they produced a bunch of remakes for our
Yeah.
generation. I think it's just something about, some of the cinematography, and it really goes to show, how great Spielberg was at its height.
Yeah.
Um, it just really made a huge impact on everybody. And I think the scene that makes kind of the impact and the reason why people identify with it so much is, it's when Dr. Grant sees the Brachiosaurus for the first time.
Mhm.
And, it kind of perfectly encapsulates that sense of awe and wonder that we all get every time we see a dinosaur in a museum or we see a long neck and we're like, oh my God, I can't believe that thing is actually real.
Yeah.
I think capturing that and putting that on the silver screen and showing people, from different backgrounds in those roles really helped us to, expand the science and make it seem fun, make it seem interesting. And I think that's the key to continuing to grow archaeology and paleontology is this subject matter should not be boring. This subject matter should be exciting.
Yeah.
It it doesn't need to be monotonous when you're talking about things that have sickle claws this long, or you're talking about an atlatl point that somebody threw into a mammoth heart like 1,000 years ago or some crap like that. That's cool.
Oh man. And the more people you get involved into the field, the more information and data we have to paint this overall picture of what life was and what happened and what can we do moving forward, right?
Exactly. And if you get more people involved in CRM and you make the competition more stringent, then it'll make the skills of these people have to become more developed. That's what we've
Mm-hmm.
seen in paleontology. People complain about not getting jobs in paleontology. But if you're not getting hired to do your craft, the only thing I have to say is get good, get better.
Yeah.
And I think competition really fosters people becoming the best they can be in archaeology and paleontology. I think lack of competition and having a field that's just too small
Mm-hmm.
can really, cause people to become complacent. But I don't really think that's going to be an issue for the next, for at least my entire career. I think we're really going to see a renaissance in both archaeology and paleontology.
That's awesome. I'm excited about that.